Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending our masterclass today, using co-creation communities to maximize your product development pipeline. I am Haley Noble, and I'm here today with my colleague, Jamie Lang. We are both senior community managers at KLC. As community managers, we facilitate both qualitative and quantitative research and co-create through our co-creation insights communities to connect with consumers, business customers, and employees. We work closely with our clients and KLC's research teams to ensure that the best methodologies are utilized and objectives are met for our clients. We know that you're here today because you understand that in today's business landscape, every day it is becoming more and more important to connect with and truly understand your customers. We also know an effective way to do this is through a market research online community or co-creation community, which provides the opportunity to tap into consumers' minds, uncover needs and pain points, brainstorm ideas and co-create new products, and build two-way trusting relationships. These are essential stepping stones to releasing products, services, and communications that will be successful. Now Jamie is going to get us started.
Thanks, Haley. First, let's take a step back before we really dive in. What is an MROC? MROC stands for Market Research Online Community. Breaking it down further, an online community or co-creation community is a group of people connecting online for a common cause, such as providing feedback to a company that sells a product or offers a service they use. MROCs employ both qualitative and quantitative methodologies to gather the feedback. MROCs can be short-term or long-term, meeting one objective or infinite possibilities, and either way, they provide on-demand consumer input. Customer insights are at your fingertips, literally just a keyboard or touchscreen away. In addition, MROCs help companies foster two-way relationships with consumers, which stimulates brand loyalty. Research can be done quickly and cost-effectively without sacrificing quality. The insights that come out of MROCs provide invaluable direction to better inform business decisions. A major cornerstone of MROCs is learning about your customers. We say customers, but this could include your current customers, your potential customers, B2B, meaning your business customers, and even employees. MROCs are the gateway to building lasting reciprocal relationships with your customers, allowing you to learn about their experiences and give voice to the customer. There are two main types of online communities, traditional and co-creation. Both traditional online communities and co-creation communities are customer-centric. As I've described, they give consumers a place to voice their opinions and foster strong relationships with a brand, which drives brand loyalty. Other similarities that I've mentioned, or we'll talk about throughout this presentation, include putting consumers at your fingertips, providing insights quickly at a cost savings, and blending qualitative and quantitative methodologies. Both types of communities inform business decisions. While these are all valuable features, traditional online communities differ from co-creation communities in some important ways. Traditional online communities are reactive. Research typically occurs late in the development process when internal stakeholders have already created something and want feedback. A one-time study is designed based on the concept's features. Respondents evaluate the concept and answer a line of questioning about it. Co-creation communities are proactive. Research occurs very early in the development pipeline when the problem to solve may be agreed upon, but a solution has not yet been created. An iterative process begins where respondents are engaged initially to discuss the challenge or problem, and then in an ongoing dialogue throughout as a product or service is developed, then refined, and then evaluated. Bringing consumers into the research process early and continuing to ask for their input throughout the process instills in them the feeling of being a trusted advisor and forges a deeper relationship, which results in richer feedback for you, bringing you closer to a successful product or service. Traditional online communities rely on traditional methodologies, like surveys and forums. Surveys are useful for collecting quantitative data, such as ratings and rankings, and forums are great when you need that open qualitative feedback. While these methods are widespread and proven, they are for the most part a linear, one-way conversation between the researcher and consumer. Questions are prepared in advance, and interaction is typically independent, limited to the respondent and sponsor. The project closes, and the sponsor compares the data with what other respondents said and reports on the original objectives. Co-creation communities employ non-traditional methodologies such as ideation and crowdweaving, which Haley will touch on later. These methodologies take traditional methods further as they incorporate ideation, collaboration, and evaluation into the product development pipeline. You are working with your customers, and your customers are working with each other. This allows customers to be part of the process, creating an even deeper two-way relationship with them. In addition, the people involved can go beyond the consumer and the researcher to include other stakeholders, such as designers, engineers, marketers. Their knowledge and expertise can be used to offer guidance during ideation and collaboration, and they can have input on which ideas move into refinement and evaluation. Additionally, co-creation communities facilitate creativity and spark inspiration. They are agile in nature, and questions can adapt based on what respondents say, allowing for new objectives to emerge. Co-creation can be used for designing new products, services, and technologies, not just for the customer, but with the customer. All this leads to successful innovation. As I mentioned, co-creation communities have the benefit of consumers at your fingertips ready to go. With your community, you will have an on-demand access to consumers. Customers ultimately want a product or service that is better suited for them, giving them more of what they want. Because of this, they are more than willing to share their experiences, particularly their bad ones, empowered knowing that they have a hand in creating or refining a product or service they use. Another benefit of co-creation communities is ongoing dialogue with your members. You can go back to them mining for more insights or follow up on something they said previously. For instance, once you've tapped into your co-creation community during product development to identify a problem, go back and adapt the product. Then before taking it to market, go back to your community and have them evaluate the change. Co-creation communities are designed for iterative research. They allow you to include multiple phases of ideation, collaboration, and evaluation, so you can be sure you've covered all your bases. When you utilize a co-creation community, you are allowing the voice of the customer to be heard. Listening directly to what your customers say sets you up for success. Your community members can even be a surprising source of inspiration, and we'll talk more about that a little later. Having a co-creation community also saves your company time and money in the long run. When tasked with an initiative, ad hoc research is very pricey. There's sample to pay for, platform costs, moderator fees, programming fees, costs for analysis and reporting. As you know, this can quickly add up and add time to your project. And it happens with every new initiative that comes up. Communities are generally seen as cost-effective and time-saving because the infrastructure and audience are already there. You don't have to build a platform and create your sample or recruit your sample from scratch for every project. One upfront cost for the community is all there is. Then you will have access to the sample, platform, and different tools that are also built in, both qualitative and quantitative, without having to vet partners for every project. Haley will talk more about these tools and methodologies in a few minutes. Also, with a co-creation community, you can reach multiple segments at once, which can significantly accelerate timelines and result in even more cost savings. You can conduct multiple studies to multiple key groups in tandem and get answers quickly. As a result, online community research is done within about 4 weeks versus the 3 to 6 months customary for in-person research. Smaller projects can even be completed within 1 to 2 weeks. Either way, you'll have initial results within hours. When everyone needs results yesterday, this is game-changing. Our last benefit of co-creation communities is that you can choose to brand your community so members know who is behind the research, or you can choose a blind community where members are unaware of the sponsor. This may allow you to feel like your members are less biased and more willing to speak freely, but you also lose the benefit of building brand trust and loyalty. You'll have to weigh your options. In either scenario, you can choose if you want your community to consist exclusively of your current customers or a mix of past and potential customers. Regardless, it is good practice to have members sign a non-disclosure agreement or confidentiality agreement so that you can share with them specific initiatives or plans with some protection. Now that you understand what a co-creation community is and the benefits, and you've convinced your organization it's the right resource for your research needs, you'll have to decide who is going to manage your community. In the last few years, there's been a lot of discussion around DIY versus full service. Do it yourself or DIY sounds appealing because it saves money in theory, but it puts all the work on you, taking up a lot of your time. You might even have some bias. And if you are new to co-creation communities, you may lack the community management expertise needed to draft, moderate, and analyze the research. Something we hear a lot is how much data online research produces, and going through all that might not be something you have the time for. The other end of the spectrum is a full service option where you partner with a company like KLC who has the co-creation community expertise, a trained staff with the time to devote to your community, and an unbiased view of the results. And in the middle, you can find a hybrid or flex approach that takes some of the heavy lifting off you and relies partially on a partner to share the workload based on your needs. You might choose to let your partner draft the project while you take the results and analyze the findings. Or you may prefer to draft the survey or discussion guide and let your partner analyze the report. Whether you choose DIY, full service, or hybrid, you'll want to consider your time, needs, and budget. With that, I'll turn things over to Haley, and she'll talk about some of the features of a co-creation community.
Great. So now that we've gone over the benefits of co-creation communities and the different kinds for you to consider, it's time to look at what having a co-creation community means for your research methodologies. Essentially, it means you'll have several different tools at your disposal, and finding the best methodology for a project is an important part of having a vibrant, successful co-creation community. When a new project comes up, out of everything available to you, you want to make the methodology fit the objectives. Always think about the best way to answer your research questions and evaluate the most effective way to get those answers. You can ask yourself things like, do I need a moderator to guide community members through a series of open-ended questions and help pull out as much information as possible? Do I need numbers to back up hypotheses or be able to slice and dice my data by a variety of different ways? Do I want members to think creatively and broadly, helping come up with the next big solution for the company? The tools you need to employ various methodologies and keep members engaged can be integrated easily within your co-creation community platform. And if you're working with a full-service research partner, like us at KLC, we'll work with you to determine which tool is best and help you mix up your methodologies to keep activities from being stale and to keep your members engaged. In fact, varying methodologies keeps members from getting bored, complacent, or tired. Fatigue will frustrate participants and lead to poor results. Varying lengths also helps mix things up and keep activities interesting and engaging for your members. So one of our clients considers the methodologies they've used recently, and then we meet and we talk about Maybe they've done several long surveys back to back, so they want to work in a short qualitative activity to change things up for the members and avoid that fatigue that we talked about. And this is all part of what we talk about when we're just thinking through the next project. Co-creation community methodologies are designed to allow you to have ongoing dialogue with your customers, incorporating them through all phases of the development process, from ideating to collaborating to evaluating. Methodologies can include, but aren't limited to, ongoing conversations in the forms of journals, discussions, chats, and even photo or video projects to help you conduct investigations into who your customers really are, understand their behaviors and learn what they're up to, what they need, and how they live. From these conversations, you begin to uncover unmet needs and understand what they're missing or what can make their lives better. Then, you can use ideation tools to present them with challenges and have them come up with solutions to problems. Again, continuing to determine pain points and gaps in the current market. At KLC, we even have our own proprietary co-creation methodology called crowd weaving, and it works right within our platform. Next, you can collaborate with the customers in your co-creation community. Allow customers to see the product in each phase of development and work with you and each other to keep making it better. Ask what they like versus dislike and what's missing. Repeated direct engagement not only ensures that customer insights are integrated with every iteration of the project, but it sets a foundation for brand loyalty. They're going to appreciate that you're coming to them through different phases of the development process. Once you've worked through a number of iterations, go back to your community and evaluate how their feedback was used or changes that were made with tools like surveys or even quick polls. Test the final product against identified customer needs and preferences. You can conduct one final preemptive disaster check before launching, and at least one additional post-launch evaluation too. Customers, as members of the community, will appreciate being involved in all steps of this process from beginning to end. So now that you know about the tools, let's talk about how to use your community effectively and keep people engaged. Because as anyone who's tried to run a community will tell you, if you don't keep your members engaged, the community will not be successful. So this is sort of our roadmap for the second half of our presentation here. And these are strategies for effective engagement that we're going to be walking through these one by one and take you to the end of our presentation here. So first things first, you need to know your audience and always keep them in the back of your mind when doing research through your co-creation community. All communities start with a recruit, and these people become what we'll call your members. All members of our communities go through a screener survey to learn relevant information about them. Of course, your typical demos, things like age, gender, household income, region of the country, etc. But any other information you need across all projects, things like purchasing behaviors or familiarity with certain brands. You can also use the screener to include and get acknowledgement of non-disclosure agreements, terms of use documents, and things like that. One of the beauties of a community is this isn't your only chance to gather this kind of relevant information either. Any screening needed for a particular project can be done easily with a quick poll within 24 hours. And as we'll talk about later, you can reevaluate your community every few months during what we call a refresh period. Beyond just the basics, however, there are other important things to consider for co-creation community recruitment. Remember, you'll be using these people for several projects over and over, and they should be adept at both qualitative and quantitative responses. So look for people who are open to talking, working with moderators, and can articulate themselves. Even better if they're open to sharing pictures and videos, narrating or walking you through stories or shopping experiences, and generating ideas or co-creating with you. So for us, even the most simple recruit, we try to include some sort of open-ended question where they can express themselves. If it's a food community, for example, we might say, tell me about the best meal you've ever had. Or if you could cook a meal with anyone living or dead, who would it be? The point is to show that they can answer this type of question and see how well they do. Chances are, if they aren't willing to take the time to thoughtfully answer this type of question in a screener, then they aren't a good fit for your community. You also want to keep the data you have updated to ensure that community activities continue to be relevant. So anything that may become outdated can be asked again in polls or during refreshes, or you can have all members retake the screener survey every few years or so, telling them that the reason you're doing so is to make sure content and activities are catered to them appropriately. Once you've recruited, now you've got people who you already know a ton of information about them, and they're ready to go. So you need to use this information. When communicating a new research project to your members, use the screener information to target the right audience and make it personal to them. Every touch point should use the appropriate tone and vocabulary based on what you know. This includes posts about and invitations to the research project, as well as instructions and the actual moderating within the project itself. So for example, in the co-creation communities that we manage, we communicate with business decision makers and business travelers differently than we would talk to, let's say, our foodies or just our general population. Or if we know we're speaking to millennials for a particular project, we may decide to talk to them a bit differently than our boomers. So let's move on to our second engagement strategy, and it's really an extension of that first one, know your audience. A co-creation community is all about building trust between researchers, moderators, and respondents. You'll get to know them, and they'll get to know you. To achieve this necessary level of trust, transparency is key. You, as researchers or community moderators, need to be clear with your objectives and instructions. Make sure survey questions and qualitative discussion guides are written with your participants in mind. Again, remember tip number 1, know your audience. You have all this information at your disposal, so use it. What's the best way to do this? You have to think like your members. Draft questions and instructions in their language and in a way that will be clear to them, and explain exactly what you want to know so they can answer your questions that you actually need answered. Avoid corporate jargon. Think about the flow of the question so that it makes sense to your members. Be concise and direct, and avoid complicated question types that are just going to confuse them, or long lists of 25 answer choices or grids that are just going to baffle them and make them not want to participate. Consider mobile and on-the-go techniques where appropriate too. So for example, like I said, we have a community of frequent business travelers for a certain airline. Clearly, these people are on the go, often with tight schedules, and they're traveling for business, so their schedule isn't really their own. We try to keep their activities short and simple when we can, and easily accessible on mobile, so that we're respectful of their time, or the lack of it. Otherwise, they won't keep coming back and engaging with us inside our community. Also, be transparent about your plans. Why do you need the information that you need? How will you use their feedback? And what are you going to do with the data that you collect about them? And be transparent about how it impacts them. How long will it take? Will it extend to multiple days or parts? And what will they get out of it? Make it clear what's in it for you and what's in it for them, so that it's seen as a reciprocal, mutually beneficial relationship. In addition, be clear about what you're asking of your members. Do you need photos, videos, screen recordings, or narration from them? Do you need them to complete the activity in a certain setting, or maybe by a certain date? And be clear about what else they can expect from you too, including follow-up questions or additional projects that might come up. And this leads to a very important point. Keep in mind that not all objectives need to be tackled in one project. And this is really the beauty of having a co-creation community. You have a group of people ready to go when you need them. As long as participants' expectations are set, it's actually better for objectives to be split up. This also helps keep the research objectives shorter, which helps member engagement and avoids fatigue. Being clear and transparent will create a better user experience for your members, which increases their likelihood to participate again, increases the quality of feedback that they provide, and increases their trust in you, the moderator, or the brand as a whole. Trust, especially between the moderator and respondents, builds a strong rapport. The moderator knows if everything is laid out clearly and expectations are set, they'll have a good group of respondents and can go back with follow-ups that will actually be answered. But the members can also be honest and say things like, I need more time on this, or I thought I was going to be shopping this weekend, but it's actually not going to be until Tuesday now, so can I still do it and respond to you later? Things like that. If you respect their time, they'll respect yours. Next, we want to talk about refreshing our members. As Jamie mentioned before, the initial recruit isn't the only time you can add or remove community members. To keep your co-creation community vibrant and strong, every year or so, you want to do what we call a refresh. And usually this has two phases. Bring in new members and remove some old members. When it comes to removing members, we do this to make room for the new members. And typically we remove members who've been inactive for a certain period of time, usually 6 months or more. Sometimes we call them the dead weight of the community. You can even remove a few members that have been around a while and still participate, but based on their participation, you feel that they've become complacent or stale or maybe biased. We find that it's best to simply tell them that their time is up, but don't be fooled that it's because they are only yesing us all the time. We find members don't hold back negative opinions or feedback. They know that they're actively involved in influencing the brand, not just telling you what you want to hear. On the subject of refreshing and getting new members, it can be done a few ways. You can send email invitations to customer lists that you have accumulated for your customer base. You can post invitations to join the community via social media, website, or print media, or even at the end of other customer service surveys that you're already conducting. You can also recruit using third-party sample providers who will be able to target and screen for your desired audience. And we've even done member referrals if it makes sense for a particular community. So your members can actually recommend friends or coworkers or peers to join them inside the community. Bringing in new members during a refresh is an opportunity to fill gaps that you may have in your community demographics. Maybe there's a demo that wasn't part of your business plan when you first recruited. Now it's the time to refine your screener to get the segments that will be important to your business in the months ahead. Take advantage of quotas to target groups to best reflect your customer universe. So for example, we work with companies, particularly in the food and beverage industry, where they acquire new brands quite frequently and their customer landscape is always changing. It's common that new trends emerge and you need to include a new segment or a new group. We've also seen a community start small and become such a success that the brand wants to expand it and include more segments and get more people. On the flip side, there may be targets that aren't going to be your focus anymore, and you can hide those questions. You don't want to bog down your screener with questions that are just nice to know. As we said before, you'll always have the chance to do polls or screen for a specific project that comes up. The community screener is just meant to be the essential information that you need to know for everybody. Your screener is the first touch point your potential members have with you in the community, so you don't want it to be tedious or overwhelming for them. And now Jamie's going to take over and take us through the second half of our co-creation community engagement strategies.
All right. The first strategy I'll talk about is something we as researchers have most likely put some thought into: incentives. Proper research requires time, and participants need to be rewarded appropriately for that time, especially if you are asking for pictures or videos or doing deep dive ethnographies that require follow-up, but even for shorter activities like forum discussions and surveys. Incentives should show you value members' participation and respect their time. Incentives come in different forms. They can be external, such as monetary, donations, gifts, or swag. Our members especially love anything with the brand or community logo on it. Another incentive is announcing sweepstakes winners in emails or on the site for member recognition. Incentives can also be intrinsic, having a hand in product or service development, creating something, collaborating, being valued, even achievements or a leaderboard. Don't we all love a little friendly competition and those bragging rights? Incentives also need to be reflective of the audience. B2B requires higher valued incentives for their time, and that may not always be direct monetary payment for participation. For instance, donations to causes can be effective with B2B. In our experience, we find that payment for participation is more enticing than sweepstakes or drawings. Many of our communities have a reward structure where members earn points for participating in research and co-creation activities. Points accumulate and they can redeem points for monetary amounts. And when is up to them. They can save up their points for a large amount, say $50, or they can redeem more often for smaller amounts, such as $10. We know that it's not always possible for that type of a reward structure, especially if you are working within tight budgets. You can control the budget better with a set number of winners for a set amount, per activity or per month. We find that for B2C sweeps and drawings, more winners for a smaller amount is more encouraging than a few large prize winners. However, with B2B, fewer, larger amounts can be more enticing. If you are interested in non-monetary rewards, some examples our clients have used include branded merchandise with the community name. Bacardi Spirit Influencers Panel gave out coasters and glasses. Entertainment Weekly Front Row Panel gave out shirts. NEA member benefits provided notepads and luggage tags. And you can use items that you have on hand. Merchandise doesn't have to be created. Other communities have sent coupons, and our members always ask for free samples. These are just some of the ways we incentivize our members. Our next strategy can also be considered an incentive. To close the feedback loop is to share results with the people that provided the insights. You never want your members wondering if anyone is on the other side reading their feedback or listening to what they took the time to write or say. For the member, it communicates the actions that have been taken based on their feedback. This makes them feel heard and part of the decision, reassuring them that their feedback isn't languishing in a database or cloud somewhere. It is being read and, more importantly, applied. Closing the loop builds trust, which strengthens the relationship and makes it a two-way relationship. It enhances the overall customer experience. We find that learning their feedback is implemented is also a top incentive why members participate. We've even learned through our own research that it is also something that should be done to get them to engage even more. For example, some of our CPG clients share with their members when a product they helped co-create or refine is about to hit the shelves. Some of our utility clients share back with their members how results from an activity informed their decision to use certain messaging in their communications. Other service clients have confirmed that with member feedback, they implemented new labels or navigation on their website. It's also fun for members to see some data results so they can see where they fall in line with their co-members. Think of when you take a quick poll and you get to see the results. You can do this for surveys or discussions where the outcome is usually not communicated back. In addition, you can provide a year in review where members get a snapshot of the community, the membership, the activities done, the ways the community had an impact. Closing the loop doesn't only have benefits for the members. Community sponsors benefit as well. For you, the sponsor, it portrays you as customer-centric, which is extremely important these days. It illustrates that you value your customers' time and effort. Closing the loop shows you appreciate members' opinions and take time to listen to them. Moving on to our next strategy, don't overlook that one of your co-creation community's best features is its members. Give your members some autonomy by putting them in the driver's seat. Much like closing the feedback loop, this is another way to make them feel valued. One way to do this is having what we refer to as a members lounge. This is a place on the community site where they can start conversations with other members and talk to one another. This builds a community feeling among members, gives them some authority, and can produce interesting engagement or research topics. Another option is to ask them what they want to talk about in the community. This can be an ongoing thread on the site or something you ask them on occasion. Like the Members Lounge, this also gives them some authority and can produce interesting future topics. It also gives you insight into the minds of your customers and might open you up to something that wasn't even on your radar. For either of the previous suggestions, you might want to consider giving credit to the member who inspired the new topic or activity. Like we mentioned earlier, member recognition can be a form of incentive. This worked for one of our food and beverage clients when the suggestion about doing a topic about cooking with alcohol came from a member. The client hadn't considered this usage and appreciated that spin. One of our service clients has asked members, "What keeps you up at night?" which opened their eyes to new ways they could help their customers without asking them directly. This is also a form of ideation, which is part of co-creation. Another way to give members some power or authority is if you offer charity donations as an incentive, let the members vote for the charity of their choice. You should also conduct member satisfaction check-ins to learn what's working and what's not, and to extend another opportunity for members to feel heard. Make sure you close the loop and tell them what changes are being made to the community based on their suggestions. Now, of course, you might not be able to implement all their desires, like bigger monetary rewards, but there might be a few other changes you can make to create a better member experience. Through a member satisfaction check-in, one of our service clients learned that their members really wanted confirmation of how their input influenced decisions. This client made it a goal to close the feedback loop much more often, since it's such an easy way to enhance the member experience and increase participation. Another example is what we learned. Members, not surprisingly, wanted more shorter activities. When planning research, our client continues to make an effort to break up longer projects into smaller parts. As Haley said earlier, it can be helpful to break up your objectives, and with a co-creation community, this is completely possible. Something else we've been known to do is include a question at the end of a survey asking members what we could have done to improve their experience. Like a member satisfaction check-in, this gives members an opportunity to give you some ideas for improvement. The bottom line is that your members can be mined for insights beyond your research objectives. And now Haley will go over our last strategy and bring us to our conclusion.
Okay, so last but not least, this entire time we've been talking about using your customers to collaborate and co-create with you in an effective online community. But if you're going to ask your customers to collaborate, then your internal teams need to be doing it as well. You can do everything that we talked about today, but your community won't be a success without internal buy-in. Get as many internal teams, marketing, research, engineering, get them involved in supporting community initiatives and coming up with content and projects to be run. This will lead to internal excitement, give you ongoing content, and lead to successful projects. Getting as many people as possible to see value in the community can be done many ways. Some of our clients hold an annual meeting inviting people from all over the company to come and hear about the community and its projects. This is a good time to think about what we mentioned earlier and evaluate your new needs and initiatives too. You can also carve out some time during a staff meeting or a team meeting to show off the community's recent impact and benefits. You can post or share a newsletter recapping some recent activities and results. Just make sure you include how to get in touch with you for more community information. So we create a monthly newsletter for one of our food and beverage clients, and it includes a snapshot of some of the research conducted during the previous month, including results. And at the bottom of every newsletter is the client's contact information for anyone interested in learning more or might have a new project to run. This newsletter is shared throughout the organization each month, and it's actually posted to their internal share site. With internal buy-in, you'll be creating community champions and advocates that the community will become a brand of its own. And when questions come up that need answers yesterday, the community is top of mind for everyone as a tried and true option with proven return on investment. So it's important to note that a lot of what we've talked about today, including member autonomy, incentives, closing the loop, knowing your audience, and being transparent, all work together to keep your community members engaged. And engaged members produce deeper, richer insights, which in turn better informs your business decisions and puts you on the path to success. And that pretty much wraps it up for us here today. We've gone through all of our strategies. So thank you for joining, and we appreciate your time with us.